Shout out to Hoop and Bad Money Slim and Dave
Hoop.
McClay and Nathan and Jim in Buffalo and Coach Keith. And I appreciate all you guys hanging out with us. This is not our usual recording time, of course, but it wasn't a typical weekend. Man, we had a big turnout for AEW All Out in Chicago. And we see two nasty boys coming to the ring. We had two nasty boys in the main event. Swerve Strickland, my goodness, delivering a cop killer to Hangman Adam Page on a cinder block. Just when I thought we'd seen it all in pro wrestling, Tony, my goodness, a cinder block.
Yeah, and not only before that, a bag over the head of Bryan Danielson. And it's like I said backstage when it was all over with. I said, well, I got to see within the last year, I got to see a home invasion, someone burned someone's houses down. Why not see a couple of attempted murders? First attempted murders I've ever seen.
Yeah, the syringe in the mouth.
Oh, stop.
I don't remember seeing that. And then the exploding chair, the bag over the head, the thumbtacks in the ladies' match with a split.
Yeah.
But a cinder block. What's funny is I watched, of course, there were some wrestling legends, if you will. I was watching that show with. I won't say any names. And when Swerve brought the brick in and dropped it, one of the legends said, "Oh, I was hoping that was going to crush into 100 different pieces and we would have seen it on camera." And I said, "Hey, man, he did that to prove it wasn't gimmicked. He did that for you."
Right.
And then every bump they would take, this guy's like, "Why isn't it breaking?" I'm like, "It's real, bud. That's not a working cinder block like we've seen smashed over JR's head by Eric Bischoff. That's a shoot cinder block, bud."
Yep. How was the response for the show overall, just general?
It was crazy, man. I mean, the Osprey Pac thing, I heard people saying, "Hey, man, I never seen a match like that before."
Yeah, it was. You know what? We knew it would be like that.
Yes.
It did not disappoint. In other words,
I really enjoyed the pile driver spot by Daniel Garcia.
Yeah,
like they made a pile driver matter,
right?
And like it got a big pop. Just a regular old school pile driver, nothing fancy, just the same type that we've seen forever and ever. That made me smile. Like, hey, we don't have to do all the crazy stuff. Every now and again, we can. The old school still works every now and again.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking of crazy stuff, we got a barn burner to start this show. I mean, I know we're going to be talking about Ric Flair and Sting at Clash of the Champions, but how about our pal Kevin Sullivan teaming with our other pal Mick Foley to take on the Nasty Boys? This is about as good as it gets in a crazy tag team spectacle in 1994. I mean, I know the Public Enemy was doing their thing, but as far as mainstream American television, Public Enemy at this point is still in ECW, I believe. But this is good stuff, man. I love Kevin Sullivan and Cactus Jack as a tag team.
I didn't realize, but they came in with the belts, didn't they?
Yeah.
They were the world tag team champions here. How about that? You know, Sullivan, Sullivan will be the okay. Brian Knobbs wanted to smack him in the face, and you see what Kevin Sullivan did.
Yes.
Kevin was probably one of the best shooters of all time. He really was. I mean, he was about as stiff as you could get, but he didn't need to be because he knew how to work. But he kind of liked to be when the situation called for it.
We should mention, this is not too many months after we saw Cactus Jack lose his ear. That's a sentence you just don't get used to saying.
Yeah, I know.
He lost an ear in a match with Vader. Are you surprised even 30 years later, like, we legitimately had one wrestler lose an ear in the middle of a match against a monster wrestler.
Yep.
And we didn't turn it into an angle. What?
What year was that? Do you remember what
1994.
Year? Okay. So that would have been the era of, would that have been Bischoff and Ole and Sharon Sadello running things as a three-headed monster?
It's a couple months prior to what we're watching right here. So at this point, Cactus Jack wants to leave because he realizes, hey, man, you're not doing anything with me losing an ear.
Yeah.
You have no plans for me.
Yeah. That's probably before Eric really took over the company, I think. Because once again, it was Ole Ciancidello and Eric Bischoff. They were under. They were running the company, and then eventually Eric kind of took the business over. Right. That's kind of how it happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is probably before all of it.
By the way, if you take a look at the Wrestling Observer reader poll, this got the second most votes for best match of the night behind Ric Flair and Sting. So this is a pretty good match we're watching right now.
Yeah, the Nasty Boys were. I always thought they gave you a pretty good match. Yes. They were what they were, but they were good brawlers. They knew what to do as far as brawling was concerned. Bobby Heenan was scared to death of Brian Knobbs, and because he thought he was like a loose cannon. And here we are down at ringside, so I know Heenan's very nervous. We're pushed right up against the ropes, because Knobbs would be one of those guys that, once he fell down to the floor, hell, you never know what he would do. It was kind of like Vader. You never know what he would do down the floor. Yeah, they were pretty. I thought Knobbs and Sags made a very, very good tag team, and they had a great run. They really did.
I loved them. They're one of my guilty pleasures as a tag team. I mean, I went as the Nasty Boys, me and my best pal back in the day. We were the Nasty Boys for Halloween.
How about that?
By the way, this show has 4,044 paying customers. There's a gate of $42,000. That's actually good numbers for WCW in this era. There's a total of 6,700 people in the crowd, but it was set up to where they could have had 11,000. We aren't there yet. But the match we're watching was not all that critically acclaimed. It only got a star and 3/4. Meltzer said overall he was in the minority. He did not think this was a good show, but the readers gave it 53% thumbs up. And they are, of course, the customer.
How about that?
It's an interesting time, though, because this is around the same time ECW is starting to get a little bit of buzz, and they promoted Sabu versus Cactus Jack on June 24th at the ECW arena, and just assumed, based on those two names alone, it would be a guaranteed sellout. It was not.
Right.
But it was a well-received match for sure. And this is also the circumstance, the era, and I don't know if you've ever seen this, but Sabu broke a bottle over Cactus Jack's head. Like, not a gimmicked beer bottle. He just kept hitting him over and over and over until it broke.
Why not? That's the way Cactus would want it.
It's crazy. By the way, he did that just days after this. So he's going to do this show in South Philadelphia on a Thursday, but on a Saturday night, he's in Philadelphia getting cracked over the head with a beer bottle.
So this is like his last show with us?
No, he was allowed to work some shows here and there, but he is here to drop the belts.
Okay.